is Mitch Berg, and on April 2nd, I turned 58 years old, and I am a mixed media artist with a collaborative art studio project that I'm trying to create.
Okay, so now I want to hear about your experience being an artist in Albuquerque. So if you can just tell me how long you've lived here and how you feel that Albuquerque is is it a good place in terms of fostering your art and your livelihood? How has the experience been for you here, and how long has it been that you've been here?
All right, I moved to Albuquerque in 2016, so now 4 years or so. And I moved here from Santa Fe, where I had an art practice for 21 years. And I like Albuquerque a lot because it's a young, a hungry, collaborative idea. Like there's more people talking about art with each other rather than just going to their studios and disappearing and making art. So I don't make a living here, so I think I'm well suited to be here because I think it's a difficult place to be an artist and make a living. But I like being an artist here, and then I make my living on the road doing art shows and art fairs. And
Oh, it just froze up.
all
Okay.
right,
Okay, so the last thing I heard, so pick up with that you make your living on the road during art shows, because that's where it cut out. So just start that from the top.
so yeah, so I again enjoy making art here in Albuquerque because of the spirit of collaboration. But I actually make my living on the road, traveling around the country, and so it's a difficult place, I think, to make a living as an artist, Albuquerque, and it's a great place to make art. So it's a contradiction in that sense. I wish it was easier to make a living here as an artist, for sure.
Have you been able to like pin your finger on or like pinpoint why it's difficult to make a living? So we have so many artists here, but why do you think it is it's difficult to make a living?
Um, it kind of feels like a third world country. There's not a robust economic base that creates this middle to upper middle class that supports the arts. Everyone wants to participate in art, but they don't have any money to do so. So, I finished one of the biggest projects I've done in Albuquerque, a public commission that took me about 2 weeks to weld together, and I was very excited to do it. And it's beautiful in this public space, and I made $2,500. I mean, if I was in Austin, it would have been a $10,000 project minimum. And again, I'm happy to do that, and we all adjust down to make that work. But I just wonder how much adjusting down is us not owning. I don't know. It's hard to say. Is the economy there? Would the economy be there if we tried harder? I can't answer that question. I don't really know how it works,
Right.
but
Okay.
it really does feel like a third world country.
If you look at the challenges in Albuquerque, um, as an artist in normal times, what do you think is happening now in these very extreme, unique circumstances of COVID?
Wow. Well, I mean, clearly people are not thinking about spending money on art. Um, they're taking care of themselves. Everyone's just kind of locked down, holding out. Um, but I'm a maker. I make everything. I don't just make art, and so this has also been an opportunity to work on building gates and fences for people. And I know everyone's at home looking at their homes and they're saying, "Oh, we need that, and let's build that." And I haven't thought of that in a while. Let's call Mitch up. And so I'm actually flourishing because I have a lot of different skills that I can incorporate into what I do. I'm not just a one trick pony.
And how would you say, 'cause you meet a lot of artists, one, just through your work and you're out supporting other artists and being social and kind of in the mix of things, but also with your DIY space you have for people, you probably meet a lot of artists through there. How do you feel as far as artists in Albuquerque, their resourcefulness, their malleability to adapt? Maybe do you have any glimpse into that as opposed to other places?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, everyone is a hustler here. And again, I think lowering your expectations makes it so that the small successes you do have actually buoy your spirit and give you the impetus to keep going. Where I think in some of the bigger markets, there's a longer way to fall from greatness, and it's discouraging. And I don't think people in Albuquerque get as discouraged. We're real comfortable with whatever little scraps we.
Oh shoot, I lost sound on you. But we were talking about like how people here can just, they're okay just going for the scraps and making do with whatever little
Yeah,
scraps they can get.
I mean, it's definitely what I love about Albuquerque as opposed to living in Santa Fe, where there's just higher expectations about what success looks like. And here, people seem to have a more humble notion of what success looks like. And I think post COVID-19, we're all kind of recognizing this idea of infinite growth and bigger, 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 bigger every day is just an unsustainable reality. And really, is that what we want? Is there room for personal happiness in constant success? And what does your success look like? So I don't know. I really like Albuquerque for that. And it's a strange thing to say because it is a lesser way of approaching what you're capable of doing. But at the same time, I think it is a lot healthier and more sustainable to, be satisfied with a little bit less from time to time. And I'm all about it. It's definitely why I moved here. I moved here. I realized that I'd reached a point where I was making as much money as I could without killing myself. And so I decided instead to need a lot less. And moving to Albuquerque it was a less expensive place to live. I need half as much as I did in Santa Fe. I make the same amount of money, and I'm a lot less stressed out. So it was just a kind of changing the mathematical equation,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very comfortable with that.
Right. Well, and it's I feel like that realization is probably a realization a lot of people are going to come out of COVID with, but you had it ahead of time, and so you were able to kind of get rooted and settle in and start on that trajectory. And it'll be
Yes.
interesting to see how many other people come into that same headspace after this. Do you feel like there was any moment when you kind of clued into things with COVID? Was there a defining moment where you really saw how it might start impacting your life? Like once it started entering people's consciousness, like where you saw how it would impact your work, your art? Was there
Huh.
anything?
Um, I mean, I the for me that it's more of a philosophical thing than a personal thing. This idea that this COVID reality is it's affecting everyone in the world, and so it feels like less pressure to suffer alone, or even in like a hurricane. After your hurricane, you have to, like, everyone else in the world didn't suffer a hurricane, so it's we're all suffering together. To me, it was a lot easier to just let go of whatever was going to happen, and just accept that, and we're all experiencing this together. Like, I'm not the only one who can't pay my mortgage next month. Everyone in the world is going through this. So I had to believe there was some empathy coming in. And I would like to believe that maybe post COVID-19, there will be a little more empathy, all this forgiveness from banks and creditors, and like, hello, there's not any money here to pour out. I mean, it's over. This idea that endless
amounts of money are available. So I don't know. I'm actually kind of optimistic about maybe a more humanistic way of relating to each other in a business, and I'm encouraged. I have to say, it's a strange thing, but I think these kind of epic events definitely reset your notion and make us all a little more humble. We could use that.
And how how has it, you said, you know, that because you're a maker you've been able to take on other projects other than your art, but what are some other ways, because you do go on the road with your art, what are some of the most fundamental, whoa, you went black, what are some of the most fundamental ways in which it has impacted your work? Can you just like lay those out, like what?
Well, I was getting ready to go to an art show in Houston and another art show in New Orleans, and that's how I make my living. And the one in New Orleans is the best art show I've ever done, and it's been about 6 years since I've gotten in, and I was very excited to be going. And it was completely canceled, and it's over. I mean, that's just not going to happen now. The art show in Houston was postponed until October, and a donor, a person in Houston who heard about the whole situation, they granted every single artist, and there's 300 artists, a $1,500 stipend that they just can have. So it's been a wild mix of both good and bad things. Today I would be in New Orleans, and instead I'm listening on WWOZ to Jazz Fest virtually. They're kind of doing a radio program. So there's some solidarity to all of this, and that's always what my artwork is about. I mean, I'm not the guy who works in his studio and sends it to a gallery and gets a check. I'm all about making art, going out into the world and using that as a platform to communicate and collaborate and have conversations with people. And so in some ways that hasn't really changed. It's in some way we're talking more to each other. Hey, how's it going? What are you doing? What's happening to you? How are you dealing with this? So I don't know. It's kind of, again, strangely beautiful time to be in this situation as an artist, specifically because we're creative people that used to hardship and dealing with it creatively. So I think this is a great opportunity. I think everything's going to be great after this is all said and done. But that's me. I'm not a banker, or
So, what have been your conversations with other artists then too? Because I don't know, what's your sense in terms of like your community of people, how they're feeling and taking this in and processing it? Do you feel that they're kind of in line with the way you're thinking, or some other people struggling with that more, or have you been able to kind of tap into that? Have you been in contact with people?
The majority of people that I know, they just do art shows, and so they are freaking out. And the art shows were already in decline, so no one had extra money laying around. We're living art show to art show for most of the case. I'm fortunate. I started thinking about this years ago, that art shows were on the decline, and maybe I ought to start thinking about another way of making a living. So I kind of got out of this a little bit ahead. My goal was to maybe teach classes. Obviously, I can't do that now, because we're all still in quarantine. But having a shop where I can make my own things, I've somehow adjusted to this. But everyone I've talked to is freaking out and really challenged, and do not know how they're going to get through this if it lasts much longer. So I feel everybody's pain, and I doubly so feel fortunate that I have a little bit of my own space and breathing room to weather this particular storm. I don't know if that's necessarily like write a book about it and how to survive the current. I don't think did anything other than my my usual get Mitch lucky kind of way of doing things. I tend to be a lucky person, so where does that come from? I don't know.
Well, what about, so if you were to look forward, I mean, how do you see then, are there additional adaptations you're going to need to make, or are there other things that you're going to need to start implementing, do you think, in your work and in your art looking forward as this pandemic continues to evolve? I mean, you might be kind of ahead of the curve at this point as far as some of your decision making and things that you've taken on, but even going forward, do you see other ways in which you might need to kind of mix things up a bit or build on this in a different way?
I definitely, I mean, my goal was to take this process of moving away from art shows into maybe other forms of making art, either public art commissions and, commissioned gates and whatever, and to do that over the next 10 years or so while continuing to do art shows. And now maybe that time frame might be compressed a little bit. There is also a part of me that thinks that people are going to be spending more time home, and maybe the art shows will get a renaissance. Another, like, people are going to like focus on their homes again, which is how we all made a living previously. And maybe people will start buying art again. So I mean, it's really more again about just opening up to possibilities and opportunities, and maybe not the traditional ones that I was anticipating, and seeing where they go. I started doing collaborative public commission work with a guy named Billy Joe Miller, a local artist, and he seems to continue to get public commissions. So I'm also working with him, and I'm very excited about the fact that that's happening here in Albuquerque. That's also happening. The mayor putting a lot more money into supporting artists through programs and purchasing art. And I'm in a program called Ignite, with CNM, the local community college here, that's kind of about business development for artists, recognizing that it's easy to make art, but kind of difficult to make a business out of it. So there seems to be a lot of focus on supporting artists and the arts, recognizing that they do matter in the world. So I'm encouraged by all of this shift. And again, I think it's just the great humbling that's happening here, and we're all adjusting to that. So I feel like I'm on the right thinking as far as not a plan, but recognizing opportunities where I maybe wouldn't have been looking for them previously. And I recommend that to everybody. Like, don't get locked into an identity, a definition of work, a way of seeing how you do what you do, because a lot of things can come out of non-traditional. The people that I built a gate for, they looked online at my work accidentally and saw some artwork that they wanted, and they bought some artwork from me they wouldn't have known otherwise. So you just have to put yourself out there, and when we're allowed to go back outside, we can do that.
Right.
But I do have to say, I am not excited about living in the virtual world. As an artist, I like real things. I am not a virtual artist. I am a hands-on, build things, talk to people. So this is tough. That's the hardest part about this whole thing. I need to go back outside soon.
Mm-hmm. That was the next thing I was going to kind of ask about, because everything you do is just so hands-on. There's a lot of engagement with other people. I mean, thankfully you're in a space where you do have like outdoor space. You have a little plot of land there that, you can move around and still do things. So can you talk also about the context in which you work, and what days, a typical day would look like pre-COVID versus what your day-to-day is now?
Yeah, actually, that hasn't changed that much because I do wake up in the morning and just start wandering around my property until some idea shows up. And an idea always shows up. And now, and I would wait for someone to bug me, and now no one's bugging me. So I'm really having an opportunity to delve into my work. And I have to say, I appreciate the space both physically and mentally because I'm really enjoying making art right now. I'm digging in deeper than I've ever dug into every. I usually make a lot of work, and now I'm making less work more deeply. I'm taking more time, and I know I have that time to do that, and it's really nice. And I can see that that is almost like how artists mature. And I feel like I'm maturing as an artist because I am looking at my work deeper with more time frame involved. I'm usually getting ready for the next art show, getting ready for the next art show. And now I'm just, take your time, dude. You got time. Let's see what comes out of this. So I don't know. Actually, I think my work could get better from this. And hopefully it becomes a habitual thing that my relationship with time deepens. And that would be awesome.
Does that
Because
feel
as you get older, you also have less time. So there's that.
that feels almost like an unexpected surprise? I mean, could you have even conceived that that might be one of the things that arose out of this?
No, not at all. I mean, it really is pretty awesome. And again, in particular, I was getting ready for Jazz Fest, which is an insane process that I was really excited about. But it's like, how much can you make in 2 months? And now that is not the way I'm doing things. It's like, how great of a piece can I make in 1 month, and really dig in. And I'm working on a really large piece right now. And I just, every day I go back out there and I look at it. And normally I would be like, all right, that's done, next. And I'm like, no, what is that going on? What's it about? And it's a deeper conversation with a single piece, kind of like if you were trapped in a room with someone for a really long period of time, you get to know them a lot better rather than, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, me too. See you later. And it's that same relationship with the artwork, and I'm digging it. I'm very happy. Really cool.
Well, and I'm guessing you're still working with the same materials you had to begin with. Can you describe for people that don't know your space and all the things you have? What does it look like when you enter in onto your property, and what's there, and what is
Mhm.
your workspace and your
Yeah,
studio?
I have two shipping containers. One is used for welding and woodwork, and one is used for constructing all of the parts that I work with. And I have a quarter acre junkyard, and organized. It's a nice space. It's filled with a lot of things that I've gathered from all over, whether it's in salvage yards or on the side of the road. And it's a very interesting place, as you can imagine, a hoarder's delight. But I actually dig around and find something to weld together. And then I have a studio where I have kilns that I make glass, fused glass, lampwork glass. I have a blown glass furnace, and I can add glass to these metal frames and add wood, and I have old window frames and just everything. And it's just mixed media paradise. And I don't really have any plans when I leave in the morning. And I like that discovery. It's a scavenger hunt, both in my property and in my mind, like what is going to come out of that relationship. And never disappointing, always interesting, just super lucky to be in this crazy place that I've created. Yeah. And I love sharing it. I can't wait to share it again as a place to teach classes and allow other artists to work here and collaborate.
So, what do you think things are going to look like for you a year from now?
Um, wow. I think my studio will be a lot more organized. because I've also been spending time with that. I never have time to do that, and now I'm like, oh man, now I can really spend time doing that. I recently was paid to help another artist organize his studio, so that gave me all sorts of ideas. Um, I think I will probably utilize more of my materials in a way that's more efficient. So my relationship to my materials is going to change a little bit, but it's hard to say. I mean, I would love to be working on a really big public commission. That's my goal, and maybe in this time when I'm not doing art shows and getting ready for the next art show, I will begin that process, and there will be this giant tower on my property that I slowly start working on, and it'll rise from the ashes here, and I'll start wearing a tin hat, and and become the crazy guy in the junkyard making the tower of to talk to the other people. I don't know. I'm going to get as crazy as I want to get now. There's no limits to it.
Excellent. Well, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you think would be timely or important to kind of talk about in terms of artists in the era of COVID, or other questions you think you'd like to hear your other artists talk about? Is there anything we didn't?
I mean, I've been working by myself for 20 years, and I'm slowly getting back into the conversation with other artists who have been talking with each other a lot, and I'm uncomfortable with that. I have to learn how to communicate again with other artists, and I'm not I'm gregarious when I'm at an art festival, but otherwise I'm actually not very good at the social aspects of my art career, and so I'm trying to reach out as much as possible in this new place that we're in, and it's a slow process. So I guess that's really what I'm going to be working on. Is I've got all my other stuff worked out. I'm a pretty confident artist. I like what I do. I'm very comfortable with my process, but I would like to collaborate with other artists, and that I didn't realize would take work. I thought I would just build it and they would come, like they say, and that's not happening right now. So I'm here by myself, and as soon as I'm able to invite people back onto my property and into my studio, I'm looking forward to doing that, and I'm hoping that everyone is also excited about working with each other. So let's work together.
Excellent. Thank you.